I'm Isaiah, I'm a senior.
I'm Savannah, I'm a senior.
And I'm Daniel, I'm also a senior. Alright guys, so for this program, or for this presentation, we did the motor program of swinging. For this presentation, we broke it down into a couple different sections. The first is going to be looking at the initial motor analysis of the different kids to see where they're at before we intervene with an instruction program. And then also we're going to talk about our program development and how we use items such as verbal cues, visual cues, motivators, and different kinds of reinforcement in order to teach the motor process of swinging. Also going to go over a quick evidence-based finding portion and then end with the participant statistics so you can see what ages of the kids we had and then how many boys and girls we had for this session.
So we started with our initial motor analysis and just kind of basing it off of when they hop on the swing, what are they doing? We found three different things. That one, there was no movement when they got on the swing, they just sat there and looked at us, and they needed pushing in order to start then moving. And then the second thing that we saw was no movement until pushed, with a little bit of random leg movement. And then the third was they had a previous motor program for swinging, and then we just kind of coached them along the way. So the first one we see here is Linnea, who's 3 years old, and she didn't have any motor program. So she hopped on the swing and she needed pushing in order for anything to start moving. And so we just see here that her legs aren't moving. She doesn't have any knowledge of kicking back and forth. And then the second point of they had no movement until push. There was just random leg movement. So we see here with this kid that they hopped on the swing, we pushed them, and then they kind of randomly moved their legs with no pattern or rhythm to it. And then our third point of our initial motor analysis was when they did have a previous motor program for swinging, like you can see here with Elle, who's 4. So she's kind of knows to bend her legs behind her, kind of knows to stick her legs out in front when you're swinging. But again, it's not perfect. She's not getting a whole lot of movement. And then our next motor analysis for them was looking at them while we've given them a push, how are they moving, and then after that, based on that, we would give instruction. So based on their initial evaluation, if they didn't have any movement, then we began by pushing them to give them that movement to maybe see if they could get some leg movement, and then we told them verbally to, hey, try kicking your legs out, bend your legs back behind you. And then for the random leg movement, what we focused on for them was keeping their feet together, because a lot of times if they would swing their legs, one would go off or one would go behind them, and we wanted them to keep their legs straight forward. And then also focusing on the timing of it, so pumping, like when you're trying to get more air with swinging. And then the third part, when they did have a previous motor program, what we focused on was incorporating the leaning technique to kind of give them some more movement with that, and then reinforce proper timing when they did do something correct, and then also letting them swing on their own. Once they kind of had that program based, then we let them swing and see how they did.
So the first section that we found was those that had no previous motor function. They would sit on the swing and they wouldn't know what to do unless we pushed them. And so with this first video we're going to show you is we established these verbal cues, move your legs, bring your legs forward and backward that we would say to the kids, but with no visual cues or an implementation of what we call a game. They wouldn't know when to move their legs effectively, and as you can kind of see with this video in a second, they just kind of spaz out and freak out on the swings and they're not really doing anything effective. So for this video, I want you to listen to Sarah's verbal cues, but keep in mind there's no implementation of the visual element, so they don't know really when to implement the verbal cues.
Okay, you gotta kick your legs straight out towards me, and then bend them when you go back. Okay, kick me. Straighten your legs, and bend your legs. Straight, there you go. Bend them backwards. And kick them out here. And straight.
So as you can see with Ruth, who's age 3, Sarah was doing the correct verbal cues, which she wanted to establish with the kids, but because there was no visual aid, she was just kind of flailing her legs, she had no structure, and she obviously wasn't swinging. Looking at this girl, Madeline, age 4, we started to incorporate our visual cues, which we call our game, where we would have either a pencil or one person's hands in front of the kids, and the goal would be to have them kick the pencil or to kick our hands, and that would encourage proper leg extension in the high point of the swing, which is kind of the basis for the pumping motion. So with Madeline, I want you to watch. We have a pencil in the top of the screen, and we instruct Madeline to kick the pencil.
Reach for the pencil!
Now, as you can see, her feet are still, they're not together, they're kind of one at a time, but she still has that basis of extending her legs and kind of bringing them back, which is where we wanted to start it for these kids that didn't have any previous motor function established. Now, for the second group, those who sat on the swing, and when they were pushed, they kind of had a little bit of the already established leg movement. What we wanted to emphasize was, first of all, keeping the legs together, and then secondly, we wanted to reinforce proper timing with their swinging. So, the proper timing to establish pumping technique, which is kind of the basis of unassisted swinging. So for this, we had a game where, as you can see in this video, Isaiah is in the front of the child and I'm in the back. Isaiah will have his hands out and he'll say, try and kick my hands. And then as she comes back, I have my hands behind her, and I want her to try and kick my hands in the back. And so what this does is she has 2 points of contact that she needs to reach instead of just one, like with the pencil, where she has to kick Isaiah, and then she has to bring her legs back to kick my hand, so we get that forward and backward motion. And again, this is the same girl that you saw before, but now keep in mind how her legs are together, and how she has an established pumping motion as she swings. And as you can see, she'll start to incorporate a lean on her own in order to reach Isaiah. See that lean? As he steps back, it makes the gap farther for her to reach. Because at this time, we're not pushing her. And notice how much different her leg motion is prior to the previous video. Now, this is another example of the game we would play where we had one person in the front and one in the back. This is with me and Sarah. And now watch, as I step farther back, I then force her to lean and to properly time it so she's able to reach me as I step back. Now, the last one is children that already had a previous motor function. This may be that their parents had taught them, or they just for some reason already knew how to swing or the basics of how to swing. And for these children, what we would do is we didn't really use the game, we didn't really push them much, we just really wanted to focus on verbal cues so they could get the timing down correctly. And so this is a child who already knew how to swing, he instantly sat on and started pumping. And all we really did was, we gave him a push every once in a while just because I think it's more fun when you do that, but we tried to just use verbal cues in order for them to perfect their timing. As you can see, the child's pretty self-sufficient on the swing as of this point. And that was kind of the end goal of all the kids, is this is what we wanted to see in them, is them to be able to swing effectively on their own, and then with just the occasional push from us to keep the momentum going.
So some of the different interventions we used were verbal cues, and these were used a lot to first see how they would respond. So a lot of ones we used were like, okay, pump your legs, or like kick Miss Sarah's hands, or try, and it was for them, it was really fun when they got to like kick your hands. It was really funny. Like, oh, try and kick Isaiah, and it's this huge game where it's like, oh, let's kick the teachers. For them to lean back when they're going forward, and then we really adjusted our hands coming up. We also use like reaching for the stars when they're lifting their feet. And the big thing also is to keep their feet together, because we had a lot of issues with them doing one foot at a time. Because if they're aiming for the target, they would reach their dominant foot out to try and touch it, rather than being able to do the coordinated movement both together. And then also for a lot of them, they were able to reach their feet out, but it was really hard to get them to bend their knees on their way back. So having that cue on the back was really helpful.
So for this video, look for Isaiah's verbal cues as he goes to pull her back. Before he lets her go, he makes sure she's doing everything correctly, and then he starts her on the process.
watch the kids watch what he was doing and then try and mimic it. And then we also use kinesthetic cues. So when they come forward, there'd be a foot tap. When they come reach their legs forward, and then when they come back and reach their legs far enough, there'd be another foot tap to kind of reinforce like where they are in space, like that's where your foot should be as they were pumping.
And the one thing really quick that I didn't notice until the last presentation is this is Hudson right here. Now he responded a lot better to visual cues. Now that may have been because of the language barrier, but we just happened to use his videos because he was the one that would look at us swinging and gained a lot from that. So
I really wanted to mimic Isaiah.
so keep in mind, so the first one's me and the second one's Isaiah.
Touch her. Now kick me back in.
So this is at the beginning of us realizing how he responds to visual cues. Now watch him with Isaiah. They're pretty much in sync the entire time they're swinging.
Nice.
You're doing awesome! So we also used a lot of motivators with this. We made it a game, so it's either one of us walking in front and they're trying to like hit us or kick us when we're walking in front, and it's like, oh my gosh, you hit me. Or if like we used it as encouragement, because a lot of them, especially the 3-year-olds, would hop and they're like, push me, and would refuse to start trying because they knew that they were going to get pushed. So we used it as a reinforcement. So if they started doing the proper technique, like if they kicked their hand correctly, then we would give them a push to assist their momentum. And we really didn't have a problem getting participants because it seemed to be a really popular recess activity. If anything, we had a big problem with the same kids wanting to do it over and over and trying to get, so we had to do a lot of like, okay, it's some time for other friends' turn, because we had, especially like Micah, he did not want to get off the swing, and so it was hard to get the other participants because he knew how to do it. Especially a lot of the 4-year-olds came in and either had a basic motor program or knew what they were doing. So we're like, great, yay, I'm glad you can swing, but we want to try and see the other kids that can't, and it was hard to kind of get them to take turns. But that was the only kind of issue we ran into. And then some other reinforcements we used. We did a lot of positive reinforcements to for all the good techniques they did. And then by promoting the good techniques, they kept repeating that movement, which would then instill the motor program. So we did a lot of like, good job, you're doing great, like keep it up. And for them too, like the biggest part was when then we had a reaction. So it was like, oh my gosh, you kicked me. And then it was like a funny thing for them, and then they wanted to be involved.
So another thing that we wanted to focus on was making sure that when we use positive reinforcements that they were doing the motion correctly actually the whole time. And then whenever they didn't and they did something negative, we try to give more constructive reinforcements. So we try to make sure that we're focusing on making sure they're getting the pumping motion going through correctly, and making corrections that aren't going to necessarily put down a 3 or 4-year-old in a bad way, but making sure that they also can learn and perform the motion. They can do it with their friends, and they can see their friends doing it correctly too, so that eventually that they'll be more happy with being able to do the motion as opposed to being upset that they can't do it.
Yeah.
So there is a video that's showing you.
Can you keep your feet together while you do it? Whoa! Whoa!
So right there, what we were seeing is I was still giving her a push, but because she was doing the pumping motion and going good and performing it well with her legs, that's another thing we would do is we would give them an extra push to make sure that we'll let you go a little bit higher now that you're using your legs more, just as kind of like a reward for them to being able to do
And
it.
too, instead of saying like, oh, like you're not keeping your legs together, like they'll say like, oh, well, can you? Like, it was almost like let's challenge them, and it's like, oh, you can't do this. Like, and then it was like, oh, yes, I can. They wanted to try and conquer that challenge.
And that just brings it back to the game aspect and making it a competition. So another thing that we wanted to look at as part of the study was tongue protrusion. And this one would happen, we saw it mostly when we'd stick our hand out or a pencil out and we had the kids try to get as high as they could to kick it. They would focus on doing the task so hard that they would stick their tongue out. And what we found is we did a little research on it. Basically, to sum it up, is tongue protrusion happens as a result of the brain trying to eliminate any other activity that's going towards other motor functions. So they're so concentrated and focused on performing that movement that their tongue starts to stick out so that they can actually focus and to be able to get a lot higher. If you think of like a famous athlete that has their tongue sticking out, it's Michael Jordan. It's usually the picture that comes in your head. And they found that the reason why people suspected he was so good at what he was doing is because he could focus and he could concentrate so well. And that was, the tongue protrusion was just kind of a result of him being able to do that.
Now this video is slowed down, so it's a little hard to see, but as he comes towards the camera, he has his mouth open, his tongue sticking out, so try and catch that while he's swinging.
He slowly started to open his mouth, like as he was focusing harder and harder, and then it would start to like come out a little bit.
Even if they weren't actually sticking their tongue out of their mouth, another thing you would see is they would clench their teeth really hard, and then the tongue would just be right on the other side of those teeth, so it's like about to happen right there. And then this is just the statistics of all the participants we had. So we had 14 total, 6 were boys and 8 were girls, and then all the participants were 3 or 4 years of age, and varied between